So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Simon. I like complex problems, cats, coffee, and thank you very much for having me. Apologies in advance. There's some of you that have heard my jokes before. I only have like 3 jokes, and you're going to hear them again. So anyway, yeah, so hopefully I'm going to be talking about technologies necessary but not sufficient. Hopefully you can hear me. I lose my voice easily. Please come closer. Don't be afraid if you can't hear me. I'll do my best to talk loudly. And really, there's only 3 things I want to talk about. The first one is the goal of a business, because without a goal, there is no improvement. The second thing is income. And really, this is just an example business based on true stories to try and bring these otherwise abstract ideas to life so they can make sense and you can use them. And the role of technology and improvement, which is really all what this presentation is about. I will be asking you questions. That's not to test you, it's to test me to make sure I'm delivering this in a way that makes sense. And I'm going to try and build on the shoulders of really quite amazing people, including my dad, my mentor. Any good stuff comes from them, any bad stuff comes from me, basically. Right, so I want to talk about the goal of a business. So I believe that the goal of a business is to increase profits now in the future. And I hope as you read that, you think that that's a very cold, capitalistic statement, because that's what I thought when I saw it. But there's some key words here that stand out, which is now and in the future. Because we can't increase profits, we can't make profits, we can't make profits in the future if we don't provide satisfaction to the market. If we don't look after our customers, if we don't look after the environment as well as shareholders, then we can't make money tomorrow. And also, if we don't, even close to my heart, if we don't provide a secure and satisfying environment for employees, they'll go elsewhere. If we don't look after our employees today, they won't be with us tomorrow. We can't make a profit in the future. So I hope what felt very capitalistic actually seems a little bit communistic. If we don't have an environment, if we don't look after the environment today, there'll be no environment tomorrow, we can't work. If we don't have staff, if we don't look after our staff today, they can't work tomorrow, we won't make a profit. All their needs need to be met. And if you just go along with me for a little while, just entertain me, I believe there's 2 ways then to increase profits. The first way is by prioritizing reducing costs. And that's really, in my simplistic mind, making sure of all the money flowing into your business, more of it stays there and doesn't flow back out. It goes into our pockets, it's profit. The second way is by prioritizing increasing revenue. And again, simplistic mind, simplistic Simon, that means that you just want to increase as much money coming to your business in the first place. And prioritize is the key word here. There can only be one priority. If we prioritize reducing costs, we don't forget about revenue. If we prioritize increasing revenue, we don't let costs spiral out of control. It's just which one do we place first. And there's 2 interesting things about prioritizing reducing costs. The first thing is, in your organization, everything is a cost. Payroll, estate, travel expenses, software, cloud costs, infrastructure, all those things are costs. So if you're going to prioritize reducing costs, where do you begin, where do you end? You can't focus. Secondly, you can only reduce costs down to 0. And the wonderful thing is that if you are successful in doing that, you've wound down your business. There's nothing left. So perversely, you don't want to be really, truly successful in reducing costs. If you prioritize increasing revenue, there's 2 interesting things there. One, the first thing is, and I'm going to try and convince you as hard as I can through this presentation, it gives you really clear focus for improvement. But you tell me whether I do convince you in the end. The second thing is, theoretically, you can increase revenue no end. And it's not that easy, don't get me wrong. But theoretically, it's good to know there's no upper limit. So, recap. Prioritizing cost reduction inhibits focus, because everything in your organization is a cost. Where do you begin, where do you end? And it limits improvement because you can only chase costs down to 0, at which point you don't have a business left. Whereas prioritizing revenue growth provides clear focus, as I will try to convince you for the rest of the presentation, hold me accountable, and unlimits improvement because theoretically you can increase revenue no end. Any questions? I talk fast. Tell me to slow down, tell me I'm wrong. Any questions? And also tell me where I'm wrong, because those disagreements are helpful to make sure I see things correctly.
There's only so much money in the world.
There's only so much money in the world?
So therefore there is a upper limit on how much you can grow.
I think you could say the same with physics, right? In that there's only so much energy in the universe. But yeah. So I think you could argue there's only. I don't disagree, but I think the limit is. I compare it to energy in the universe. That there's so much there that we won't hit a point of entropy, if that's the right word, for millions of years. So I agree, and I like that. And I think you're poking me, and I like it. Thank you. But do keep me honest. Anything else? Anything else? No. Okay, cool. Keep it coming. Right, so I want to talk about income. I want to try and bring some of these ideas to life to make them tangible, otherwise they're just fancy ideas, maybe not even fancy. Right, so income is a build to software business. And what I mean by that is customer. We'll see in a second. So the customer journey, I want to inform you of income so we can talk about them a bit more knowledgeably. So income, based on true stories, bring the stories to life, bring the ideas to life. It starts with customers needing help. They need some software built to solve a problem. They have a sales function that goes and finds these customers and brings them in. They then have designers who design the interface for the software, pass that to developers who develop the software, and then they collect payment once the software is complete. We have revenue coming in, right? And this is very simple. It's just so we have enough to talk about for this to really feel tangible. And so 4 steps to revenue. And it looks like a Monopoly board. Bear with me. We need to go from left to right with all the projects as quickly as we can. That's the aim of the game, right? Okay. So I haven't told you much, but I'm curious what comes up for you. If I ask you, if you were the CEO of Encom, how would you increase revenue, knowing what you know now?
Find another project.
Find another project. Yes, so you could get more race cars or things. Yes?
Sell what you've already developed.
Sorry?
Sell what you've already developed again.
So, okay, yeah, absolutely. So I'm hearing your answer was kind of focusing around here, kind of get more people coming in. Yours was like another way of kind of reusing what we have. Yes, I like that. Thank you. Kind of anything else?
More per customer.
Charge more per customer. Yeah, but that one's interesting because I think the market sets the rate. But I don't disagree. But it does. We are constrained by the market, I guess, a little bit. But yes, definitely maximize our price point. What else?
Efficient operations.
Sorry?
Efficient operations.
Efficient operations. I'm going to cheekily say cut costs. I can't see where that's coming from. But yes, to a degree. But yes, don't disagree.
Maximise chance.
Maximize chance. Maximize chance.
You put it out there. Sell more to existing customers.
Sell more to existing customers. Cool. Okay, I like these ideas. I'm hearing things here, and I'm hearing things kind of that run all the way through as well. Okay. I'm really simplistic, so you're going to have to bear with me. So I believe if I was CEO of Encom, I would look over here and I'd say, well, this is where I get paid. If I simply collect more payments in any given period, I get more money, more revenue, right? Right, okay. But the problem is, I can't collect payments on software I haven't developed. So if I want to do that faster, if I want to collect payments faster, I'm going to have to develop software faster, right? Because I can't collect payments in advance. Not really. Not sustainably. Okay, but I can't develop software faster unless, in this case, I've designed the interface for the software, right? So I'll do that faster as well. But we can't design interfaces unless we have a customer to design them for. So that's kind of like Minority Report. That's one of my 3 jokes. Sorry, Matt. So we have to do that faster, right? And I think all I've really said is if we just do everything faster, we can generate more revenue in any given period. And I don't know, it doesn't really feel very helpful. So there must be something I'm missing. And I think, I love the Monopoly board, but I don't think it's particularly helpful. There's an assumption I have that's wrong. And I think if we visualize the business instead like a pipe, the great thing about a pipe is it has a narrowest point, it has a bottleneck. That dictates the flow. And I think what I'm seeing now is what I assumed in the previous step is that every part of the business operates at the same pace, at the same speed, at the same clock speed. And that's, I don't think, true. Even if we just look in software delivery, we see work piling up between teams. And that's for many different reasons, but one is that each team is doing something different. Each team works at a different rate, and that's normal. And so really what we should find is there's always going to be a bottleneck. There's always going to be, statistically speaking, a part of the organization that works slower than the rest, through no fault of their own. They're just doing something different. And in this case, in Encom's case, it was the development step. The developers, through no fault of their own, what they were doing was unique, was delivering the least in the most amount of time. And we could tell by the fact that work was, on average, piling up more in front of them than anywhere else. But there's something really interesting about a bottleneck for me. If we imagine that the development team, again, the bottleneck, the slowest moving part of the organization, could only complete 1 project a month, say, and the rest of the teams could do much, much more. We could collect payments on 10 projects a month if we really wanted to. The revenue we would generate is equal to the bottleneck. We can't collect payments on software we haven't yet developed. This is all excess capacity. So I then have a question for you. If that made sense, if the rate at which we generate revenue is equal to the rate of the bottleneck, and everything else is excess capacity, because, for example, we can't collect payments for projects we haven't developed, how would you increase revenue income now? Now I've told you a little bit more.
Add more developers.
More developers.
Find some 10x development.
Find some 10x developers, yeah. Absolutely.
Cut costs everywhere but development.
Ooh, this is interesting, I like this one. Cut costs everywhere but development. Yep, what else?
Parallelize development.
Oh, that's interesting. And I'm gonna play that back, so I can't, for some reason I can't see where voices are coming from. Thank you very much, jeez. I'm gonna read that as remove dependencies between the different steps as much as possible. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Cool, that's good. Yeah. Anything else?
Improve your development flow.
Improve your development flow. Tell me more about that, that's an interesting one.
Well, make the developers more productive. Give them what they need so that they can be faster.
Cool, okay, help them. Yeah, absolutely, I like that, thank you.
Look for a gap in the market.
Look for a gap in the market.
You haven't thought about this one. It's important.
No, it's just, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not, so help me understand how that would help. And that's not to put you on the spot, it's because there's something there that's important.
Well, it would help your engineering and PM teams, focus in an opportunity, because like there's a requirement has never been fulfilled in industry, and technology might help achieve it.
Okay, I like this, and this is on me. So my belief is, and do hold me honest here, my belief is I haven't explained things well, and you're helping bring out a really important point, so thank you for helping me do this. So I believe, in this case, for example, we have excess capacity in sales. We have 5 projects a month coming in. And so in this case, we're in a really nice spot that not many organizations are, where they have more demand coming in than they can handle. They have people lining up with money. But I completely agree. If there is a constraint here, your tactic feels really good. That if we don't have enough people lining up and we have excess capacity all the way through, then yes, we need to find opportunities where we can sell more. Did I understand correctly?
You've got to do it anyway.
Oh yeah,
anytime.
that's a very good point as well, because yes, there's always going to be a constraint in the marketplace, regardless of what we do. And if we forget that, we'll never have customers lining up. So yes, I agree with that. Actually, yeah, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. That's good.
Speed of change right now, with the AI.
That's, yeah. No, you're right. Thank you for correcting me. I like that.
Sniff everywhere, right?
Yes, thank you.
You could invest effort to make design tools that the designers could use to make the product.
Or redeploy the designers to
Get the designers to make the product rather than the developer.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So
Some tools that the designers can then create the UI directly.
Cool. I like this. Okay, this is helpful.
Find other markets to outsource your excess capacity.
I like this. Okay, cool. These are all really good ideas. I like this.
What about reshaping your product and sales teams to just sell stuff that you've already developed, and therefore you don't need to develop
Yeah,
anything
I
new?
like that. So you dissolve the problem completely. Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, I like this.
outsource the development that you need to do in a way that maybe you haven't thought of.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to lose track of these ideas. Sorry, they're really, really good and I want to respond to them. So I'll try my best. I'm going to forget some. Forgive me. So market's always constrained. I love that. Thank you. We always need to place focus there regardless. A lot of you are poking to the development team, and a lot of you are looking to elevate that constraint in multiple ways. Outsourcing, helping Flow remove the obstacles in front of them so we can do more with the people we have, hire more. So you're all looking, so a number of you over there, and there's a few that pointed elsewhere. Forgive me, I'm forgetting designers, helping the designers. So less needs to flow through the developers, or when it comes to developers, there's less work. So again, making sure that we exploit the constraint. We make the most of the limited bandwidth we have there. Did that make sense? I was trying to make sure I responded to the good points you had.
Elon Musk just says fire them all.
Okay, that's possible.
Remove that element from your business.
I'll send him an email later. Thank you. Right. Okay. So okay. Cool. Okay. So so we need to focus on the development team, some way. As you said, there's many different ways we can help them, but that's ideally where we need to focus our efforts. Not excluding the fact we need to make sure there's always customers coming to us. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Right. Another thought experiment. What happens if we instead focus improvement in any one of these other places, not development?
You can improve by not sending as much work for the next team, and it goes directly into the client payment element of it. aka sell what you've got.
Oh, so you're looking for ways to work around the development team? Is that?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't disagree. It feels like it's a way of kind of exploiting the bottleneck by trying to kind of use them less or none. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for helping me understand. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
I think you would distress the developers a lot. You can increase their backlog and make them very nervous.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Lose customers because deliveries would be made in a timely enough manner to be commercially successful for the customer, so the business would go elsewhere.
I love your foresight. Yes.
You build
I love it.
pipeline and you attract investors. Huge pipeline that you can't deliver without massive investment to grow your
And then we get the investment. Where do we put it? Everywhere else. Okay, cool. Absolutely. So I'm hearing that work will pile up more. It won't necessarily help. There was a really good point here. Sorry, I forgot. You just came back to me. You said what we could do is we could cut all the excess capacity here. That's a really interesting one. I think the main thing to bear in mind there is if we only have limited capacity here, right, we need to make the most of it. If we don't keep them working, right, if we don't give them, and I don't mean that in a kind of Tayloristic way, but if we don't make sure they have everything they need when they need it, and if they stop working for 1 day, we lose 1 day worth of revenue kind of thing, right? If we don't give them everything they need when they need it, we lose out. If we strip capacity here, for example, if Murphy strikes, if there's an unexpected, unforeseen thing, and we can't foresee everything, there is no opportunity to catch up, and so that will hit our bottleneck and cause us to reduce revenue. So it makes sense, and it would cut costs, but we just need to be aware. So it's very astute. Thank you for that.
But isn't there an assumption here that
Yeah.
you haven't got something that you're constantly selling? You don't need to develop.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So
You need to develop everything. God, if you're in a position where the only way that you can collect a payment on something is you do some development, you're a project company. You're not an industrialized kind of productized business.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree. I think in some cases, there may be an implementation team that goes out if it's a product that needs to be implemented. There's generally, there's some steps that we would need to follow to bring a customer online in some cases. And that's what I'm focusing on here. But I think in all cases, not in all cases, sorry, but I think in most cases, there aren't that many self-service kind of things. So I guess I'm focusing on those.
You could become way more profitable by changing the business to a design agency and not a development company.
Tell me more.
Just remove the bottleneck completely. How do that?
Yeah. That would be an option if you know the marketplace. Yeah.
Designs, because it looks like you can find customers.
Yes, absolutely.
Great designs together, and you're brilliant at collecting payments.
I think
That's the model you're suggesting, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I don't disagree with this, but I think what I don't want to happen is if we remove this out, right, and we then find that, I don't know, sales is the bottleneck. At some point we can't strip out. We need to make sure that we recognize where the bottleneck is. And so absolutely we could remove development as long as we know when we've removed development and now the bottleneck's elsewhere because there's another narrowest point. We direct our expertise there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, but yeah, what you say is an option, depending on the market. Yeah. Does this make sense? I want to make sure I'm not ignoring anyone's points because they're very, very good. Okay, I'm going to move on because otherwise I will send you to sleep prematurely. Right. Final thought experiment. What would happen if we unilaterally cut costs? If we cut all teams by 20%? I think I'm asking you what you already know. Forgive me.
You would squish every bottleneck, every phase of your flow, including the bottleneck, and it would still be the bottleneck.
Great. Yes, absolutely. And so revenue would reduce as well. Probably proportionally, maybe. Cool. Thank you. Okay. Right. You've all been very charitable with my questions and helped me see new things. So thank you very much. Right. So summary: rate of the business that can generate money is the rate of the slowest part of the bottleneck. And yes, we can get rid of it completely. That might be absolutely the right thing in the market, as long as we realize there'll be a new bottleneck as we do that. Focus our attention there. If our priority is improving revenue, then we now have a clear focus, the bottleneck. So this is my promise to you. I hope it makes sense that if we are prioritizing increasing revenue, we now have a clear place to focus. And as you said, if we focus anywhere else apart from the bottleneck, we'll distress the bottleneck, we'll cause work to pile up. Improvement areas waste. We'll waste our money. Right, improving bottlenecks. Quick thing here. Okay. So we obviously want to get projects from left to right as quickly as possible. We know from our organizations, through no one's fault, it's not a straight line process. I think, as you said, we want to help remove obstacles from our developers. We want to make sure that there's obstacles that just get in the way. And there's two things about obstacles that are interesting to me. The first thing is that obstacles are in, say, my team, are generally caused by something elsewhere in the organization. Because otherwise, we would have removed those obstacles, right? And if we would have removed obstacles caused by something locally in our team, that can only leave obstacles caused by something else, like a process, a rule, something, a belief that's incorrect. So most obstacles tend to come from elsewhere. And the second thing is that I believe that a lot of obstacles tend to come from the same underlying causes. What I mean by that is if I have an obstacle as a development team, probably other teams face it as well. And if we all trace back where it's coming from, we all probably end up pointing at the same thing. It's like when you go to the GP. You may have many symptoms. I hope you don't, but you may have many symptoms. And when you do, if you trace them back and you get a diagnosis, it's generally related to one thing. There probably isn't a problem with your eyes. There probably isn't a problem with your digestion. It probably all relates to the same thing. And we don't focus on painkillers all the time. We recognize that sometimes we'll need something to treat the underlying cause. And that's just what I see in businesses. So the great thing is if we can find the underlying cause of many obstacles and focus our efforts there instead of on the obstacles themselves, we get leverage. There's generally fewer causes than there are symptoms. So an obstacle in one part of the organization is often caused by something elsewhere. Many obstacles tend to come from just a few underlying causes, which means finding and tackling the underlying causes gives us leverage. It means we can solve many obstacles for many teams, quite widespread relief with less effort. And I'm very lazy and I love that. Right, so whilst we've been in this room, we've had the directors of NCOM come together upstairs, and they've said, Simon, he's not, he's a bit funny looking, but he has got some good points. We do believe that the development team is the bottleneck through no fault of their own. And there's some symptoms, some obstacles we're seeing in and around the development team that we're aware of. The first one is that projects are progressing slowly. Staff are quitting and customers are going elsewhere. And they have an idea. And that idea is, let's introduce Agile to shorten feedback loops. The question I have for you is this a good solution?
No.
No? Okay. I'll take it. Any others?
Yes.
Unless you want to expand on that. Yes? Okay. So now we've got both sides. Anyone else? Maybe? Okay. We've got full spectrum. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's go with that. Yes, no, maybe. And I agree. Yes, no, maybe. I don't know, right? It depends. So Russell A. puts this really nicely. He says a problem never exists in isolation. It is surrounded by other problems in space and time. The more of the context of a problem that scientists can comprehend, the greater its chances of finding a truly adequate solution. The context of the problem here is the organization, is NCOM. We need to understand NCOM as a whole to understand how to remove the bottleneck, how to solve this problem. And Steve Tender nicely steps in here and says, the problem in organizations is they seem really complex. But how can they really be complex if we created them? All we need to do is join the dots. And one way that can help us in joining those dots, helping us see the inherent simplicity, is through cause and effect thinking. And that's really what I want to try and bring in here. So we can try and answer the question together. Agile? Not agile? Maybe agile? So I want to use a tool here called the current reality tree. It's from the Theory of Constraints. It's not my invention. It's too smart for me. But it's a really simple diagramming technique of understanding why, a reality. It's really, really dead simple. An arrow is an if then. So if a lamp is not plugged in, then the lamp will not turn on. The second notation is a circle, which is an ankle. So if it is raining and if I'm outside, then I will get wet. So dead simple, that's it, I promise. But I will narrate you through it. So we put together a current reality tree for NCOM, and this is how it turned out. These are the symptoms that the directors just realized. Staff are quitting, projects are progressing slowly, customers are going elsewhere. There's one more I didn't mention, which is margins are reducing. And the great thing is if you just stare at these assumptions for long enough, you can already start to see some cause and effect, some causality connecting them. So customers might be going elsewhere. If customers go elsewhere, then margins might reduce because you're not able to get your profit from them. If staff are quitting, then it might be one reason why projects are progressing slowly. May not be the only one, but it's probably a reason. And also, if timeliness is important to customers, as you said earlier, great foresight, and projects are progressing slowly, then customers are going to go elsewhere. They came to NCOM because they needed problems solved through software. Those problems are taking a long time to get solved. Why wait around? And if they go elsewhere, margins reduce. Also, minor but interesting, if finding, hiring, and training staff has a cost, and staff are quitting, margins are going to reduce for another reason. Costs are increasing. Right. What we saw was that staff time was fully utilized for projects. If that day was 8 hours long, they spent 9 hours on projects. And we also recognize that skill growth takes time. What that means is if staff are spending all their time delivering projects and they need time to grow the skills that matter, they're not going to develop them. And if staff value skill growth, if it's one of the 3 pillars of intrinsic motivation, as Daniel Pink reminds us, that might be why they're quitting. And if staff quit, there's fewer staff spread across the same number of projects for a little while until we can hire more. And so for a while there's a downward spiral where staff time is then, the remaining staff have to be spread across more projects to make sure we don't let any customers down. Right. Also, staff aren't developing skills, and that means some skills are rare. Sorry, I'm always in the way. Some skills are rare. And if multiple projects require those rare skills, as unfortunately is often the case, then some staff are going to work on multiple projects. Multitasking. And if some staff work on multiple projects, but in reality, maybe not my wife is amazing. Most people can only do one thing at once, then projects progress slowly. If one person is working on 2 projects, it will take twice as long to deliver. More than, because of the cost of multitasking. Right, and if projects progress slowly and timeliness is important to customers, and management realize this, what are they going to do? They're going to prioritize delivery. They're going to go, oh God, we're losing customers. We need to respond to this. And if they believe that maximizing staff utilization increases the rate of delivery, i.e., if they believe that if they keep all staff busy, they can deliver more in any given period, then they're going to make sure that staff time is fully utilized. So we have another downward spiral there. And so I'm going to try and summarize that. If we keep staff busy all the time, because we believe we can then deliver more in any given period, we're robbing them of learning, and they'll leave. And we're making skills rare that mean that we have to spread fewer people over more projects to get them done, and it creates a bottleneck. It slows our project delivery down. And the very thing we set out to do, to keep staff and deliver projects to our customers to make revenue, is now jeopardized without us realizing it. Yes, please.
But you also can grow skills in your project, right? I mean, you learn also something when you do the work. This is not a...
Yes, that's a very good point. And I think it goes back to maybe how I define utilized here. Yeah. I think you're right. When I say utilized here means everyone is hands-on delivering, which is what we saw, as opposed to people may not be hands-on delivering, but maybe pairing, for example, or kind of where they value skill growth, then yeah, you're right. Yeah. So my definition of utilized here is everyone is delivering. So yeah, absolutely right, spot on. The definition there is not clear enough. Thank you. Anything else? Does this feel familiar, out of interest? Okay, good. Okay, great. Oh, not great. Sorry, but no, I'm glad I'm not alone. Okay, right. So if where is the common underlying cause? So if you could wave your magic wand. If you could wave your magic wand at any one box in this diagram, and only one, where would it be? Just shout it out or point or
Staff
something.
are quitting.
Sorry, Sean?
Staff are quitting.
So if you'd focus it.
On the staff are quitting.
Oh, sorry, staff quitting. Yeah. Okay, and tell me.
That's what
That's where you'd focus your efforts. Direct. Okay. I'm not second guessing. I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any other? Management. Whereabouts? Here.
Management.
I'm afraid the question was any one box. You're gonna have to.
Yeah, management prioritises delivery because I'm focusing on that. These are the people who theoretically have got the overview and are drawing this picture if they're doing it well. So one would hope that they.
Great, thank you very much.
Take a step back.
So we have one take over here, one take over here. Any other thoughts? Yes.
It would be the management looking at maximising staff utilisation. I'd look at that.
This one?
Yeah.
That one? Okay, got one take over here. Thank you.
Can I keep one box instead?
Yeah.
Some skills are rare is greatly underrated in this kind of thing, and some skills aren't actually that transferable either, which is, for this kind of thing, is an assumption that they can be transferred.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? There's something important there.
I don't want to go into too much detail on the record.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Anything else? Any other takers? We had 3 plus an unsolicited or off the record comment about skills are rare.
Can I go against your question? Well,
Sure.
there isn't one. It's an unfair question because there is never one box to address at once.
Okay.
There is never only one box in this sort of diagram to address it.
Okay, thank you.
That would be mine.
Okay, I'm curious about that, so thank you. Okay, good. Okay, I will move forward. Okay, right. So I believe it's this one box. So I'm just jabbing you. Sorry, no, forgive me, I'm being flippant. But no, I believe this one. And the reason for this is a belief.
So you're saying I'm right? Is what you're saying?
I'm saying what?
That's what I chose. I'm just saying that.
Oh, I see, yeah. In this situation, you are right. In this,
2 cans.
so 2 cans. But then again, every model is wrong and some are helpful. So I might be wrong with this diagram and therefore together we'll be wrong. But only together, right? Okay, so maximizing staff utilization increases rate delivery. This is an assumption, and we've seen 2 interesting things here. One is we've seen empirically how it plays out. If management believe this, if they believe fully utilizing staff means that more will be delivered, we've seen how that plays out. So empirically, we know it's incorrect. And there's something else here. Where does it come in? There's something else here, but I'll get to it later. Right. I want to first answer something else. So I believe this one. So I believe you're pointing to things that are important, but there's something here that needs to be explored. Right. But before I get to that, I'm jumping ahead. What would be the impact of the original solution? That's the question we were trying to answer. That's the question I asked you, sorry. And that was introducing Agile to shorter feedback loops.
Is it just to reduce the feedback loops, or would there be the whole ceremonies with retrospectives where the staff would be able to communicate and have a channel back to management to be able to voice their concerns? Because would they then be able to communicate the fact that they are either overwhelmed, or if they don't have the necessary skill share, or is it purely Agile, just feedback loop?
Whatever you want.
Okay.
But the core principle
That's a
of
good question.
Agile is that you don't do all of your design up front because there's a bunch of unknowns later, and you're having to do continuous design as you go along.
Oh,
Basically, you're building a bridge, and
that's
as you're
interesting.
going over, you're going, what do I need to do next? Instead
I like
of
that.
thinking, how do I put a bridge in place?
I hadn't thought of that. I like that very much. Thank you. I feel that would help remove dependency between development and designers to a degree, or maybe, but it would help them. Yeah, okay, yeah.
In this situation, you're making the statement that there's a full scope of work and you're delivering that scope of work.
Yes, no more, no less.
So Agile would not fix that because you've inherently got a waterfall model.
I like this.
The design is done fully up front. You're not doing any further design later on.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's go with the simplistic. Thank you, I like this. Let's go with the simplistic feedback loops to customer demos ceremonies, because it would be harder to discuss the more systematic or systemic change of changing the business model to incorporate Agile. Thank you. I like that. With that definition.
No.
Okay. Okay, so no impact. Okay, so I struggle with this. The only thing I can think of is timeliness being important to customers. I think it might help that, because if we're doing demos to customers every week, right, they're like, oh, something's coming down the pipe. Oh, yeah, stay tuned. This is great. But then after a few more demos, they'll see nothing's coming down the pipe and they'll get frustrated. So I think, I don't think it would help in this case. And it's not that Agile's bad or good. It just depends on the problem, right? So, right. So yes, no, maybe. So cause and effect thinking, like a current reality tree, can help us find and focus on underlying causes to eliminate their effects, understand why focusing anywhere else that isn't an underlying cause leads only to temporary improvement, and as Russell Acol puts much more nicely than me, obviously, is we fail more often because we solve the wrong problem than because we have the wrong solution to the right problem. And in this case, fully utilizing staff for projects was leading to slow project progress and downward spirals. Anyway, you know this. Cool. Okay, quick interlude, then I'll try and say why I think this gentleman is right. So I have a challenge for you, and this is a very difficult one to do in your head, so bear with me, forgive me. I would like you to try to have an imaginary piece of paper, an imaginary pen, and I'd like you to try and join the 9 dots you have in a grid on your imaginary paper with just 4 straight lines without removing your pen from the paper. I struggle to give you those instructions. So if you can do that in your head, I am putty in your hands. I'll give you a second, and then I'll ask what you came up with. You can see me failing over here. I couldn't do it. Any takers?
A big right angle triangle with a diagonal coming from the right angle. Draw a right angle triangle past the dots.
Oh,
through those last two, and then one that strikes through the diagonal.
Okay, I like this. I think there's something there. Any other takers or any other different solutions?
That's outside the box.
Outside the box?
Oh, that one is.
That one, yeah, is outside the box, literally, yeah, metaphorically, yeah. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. So, outside the box. Thank you very much. So yeah, if you go outside the box, you can actually sweep it up with 4 lines. And there's one other one, which is if you fold a piece. If you do this in your head, if you manage to fold your imaginary paper, and then use your imaginary pen to draw a line across the folded paper, you could do 6 dots in one go, and then the rest is a bit easier. So yeah, thank you. Right, and there's something here which is really interesting, which is. Sorry, did that make sense? Yeah, okay. I thought. Okay, great. Creativity is shackled by self-imposed constraints. And therefore, we need to find our self-imposed constraints and remove them to find those solutions. So for example, the reason I never found the top right solution was I held an assumption that I self-imposed that I couldn't break, which was lines must be drawn within the perimeter of the square. And I'm grateful you broke it, thank you. And I couldn't find this assumption I held and break it, which means I didn't find the bottom right solution, which is the paper must lie flat whilst lines are drawn. I never said that. And when I read the instructions on it, I still couldn't break that assumption, therefore I never found that. Did that make sense? Okay. Right, so creative solutions often come from surfacing and reevaluating our assumptions. That's the summary. Let's get back to NCOM. Right, isn't that an assumption? And I've already, I think, started to answer, forgive me, is it a valid assumption? No, because empirically we've seen how it plays out. We've seen it leads to all this over here. Because all it does is it forces management to fully utilize individuals. Right, and also theoretically we know it's incorrect from Kingston's formula, which is, people are probably going to correct me here, you know better than me, but if we utilize a resource like a CPU or an individual above 80% or above, queue lengths start to grow to infinity depending on the variability of work. I realize I'm talking to people who are network gurus, so I feel a bit anxious, but we'll just skip quickly. And so my friend and mentor said, you should never, for example, plan to above 40% of utilization. Because there's always going to be unplanned work, and that might be 20%, and there's always going to be a need for continuous improvement, and that might be 20%. And by then, you're at 80%. So hopefully you'll never go above, and then queue lengths will never go above 80%. Queues will never go to infinity. If that made sense, what would happen if we changed this assumption from maximizing staff utilization increases the rate of delivery to planning work to 40% of staff utilization increases the rate of delivery? Let's see. So often the underlying cause of obstacles is an assumption that no longer stands, as we had here. And correcting the assumption can help dissolve the problem and its effects. One final question and we'll wrap up, I promise, very quickly. This is a long presentation. Thank you for bearing with me. Where can technology help? Which box? Sorry. Wave your magic wand at a box, or your imaginary pencil at a box. Where do you think technology could help? Any form of technology, your choice. Skill development, tell me more.
Investing in the staff so that they've got access to skills training.
Okay.
And the time necessary to do so is provided in their employment contracts.
Oh, that's cheeky. I said technology and you're expanding to technology and a little bit of other stuff, but I like where you're going. Thank you. No, I don't disagree. What else? Okay, let me plow on. Right, so I came up with we could automate some manual tasks. So then the developers, for example, don't have to do boring stuff that takes a long time. But the thing is that for me can only give some temporary relief. Because if we do that, and then it maybe gives them a little bit of time back so they can start to invest in learning. The problem is, if we still have this assumption, management are going to go, hey, you got a bit of free time? Here's some more work. So this underlying assumption is going to anchor us, even if we bring technology in to help. My example of technology to help. And I like how you started to tackle that by building something into the contracts and kind of bringing the social element in.
I would also expect the developers to automate all the manual tasks.
Yeah.
Good developers, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then they automate it away, and then if we still have this assumption, we'll just shovel more in. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay. Right, so I believe if we then also bring in a new assumption, plan to 40%, so then staff aren't fully utilized. And if staff aren't fully utilized, they have time to grow, which means that some skills are no longer rare, for good reasons or not, and staff won't quit because they now can learn. They now have the opportunity for mastery. And that means they may not quit for that reason at least, and so there's another reason why we don't lose staff and we don't have to spread people more thinly. It means that because some skills are rare, there's less opportunities to spread staff across multiple projects, so they don't become a bottleneck and projects progress faster and more predictably, and customers won't need to go elsewhere. And so margins will naturally improve for two reasons. Customers don't go elsewhere, we get their profits, less staff leave at least for that reason, and so we don't have to keep replacing them. So automation may provide some temporary short-term relief to overwhelm staff, but really all problems will remain if staff's time is still fully utilized for projects. We need to change the assumptions, change the behavior, and dissolve the problem. And there's some other assumptions that I've just encountered that felt really coherent to me until I saw the impact. And if I was going to summarize the presentation, the principal obstruction to an organization getting to where its managers most wants to be lies in the minds of its managers. Technology is necessary, but not sufficient. We need to change our assumptions. So what? And now what? Learning stuff. If you want some books, yeah, and yeah, just that's my thing. But yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So we've probably got time for one or two quick questions, if anybody's got anything to follow up. I think everyone was very intensely occupied with that, so thank you, Simon.
May I ask a question of the audience on your behalf?
Yeah.
So I'm just really curious, from the people in the room, whether you're in management or whether you're not in management right now, quick show of hands, are you aware of any of the companies you've worked for in the last 10 years applying principles like that into improving the way they do business? Hands up if yes.
Successfully or not?
No, at all. I mean, yeah, at all would be a good start, right? So that's a pretty scarily
I see a potential
good.
at it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Did you say you were hiring?
We do a thing at Lovewell. What we do is we do a thing called internal afternoons on a Friday. So we have most of Friday is away from client work and is used for self-improvement.
Do 20% day concept.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the one thing maybe I shouldn't have skipped the summary is really looking beyond first order consequences of actions through looking at cause and effect. So if the 20% time, if the improvement in the afternoon away allows people to look across the organization, understand the impact of their actions more than just what's in front of them. Because what we do, what's really convenient, I'm carrying on, is we divide organizations to make them easier to manage. And the great thing about that is it blocks us from seeing deeper into the organization, understanding the impact of actions. These managers are great managers. They're the best managers I've probably worked with, but they couldn't see the impact of their actions because the organization was divided into different parts, right, and optimized individually. So yeah, if we use the 20% time and the afternoon is a way to understand
as a group effort as well. It's not just individually like they go off and they've got their own. It's a group effort. Everyone knows what everyone's working on.
So,
thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry.
One more?
Very quickly, could you put your slide back up that's got your extra reading
yeah, of course.
pages
Sorry.
on it, just so I
Yeah.
can take a picture?
Absolutely. I'll share the slides if you like. Yeah, of course.
On a live stream.
It's too much hard work.
Do it live.
I only want one picture.
So I still love the analogy of the traffic jam, because if there's a traffic jam, the road's fully utilised, right? I mean, think about it. You know, the traffic's not moving anywhere, but the road's fully occupied. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was awesome. It's going to take us 2-3 minutes to swap a room with Mike and Greg. So please grab a beer, do what you need to do. We'll be back momentarily.